Hello, everybody. My name is McCauley, and proud to be here. I want to thank everybody for coming out today and listening to the panels, and Rob and Lisa and Chairman Wang. I really want to thank you for putting this together. We've got a great crew of people here, and we're going to open it up in a second. A bit about me. I spent the last 20 plus years in the movie studio side, working for Sony Pictures and Fox, mainly in consumer product space. I landed in the LDE space probably around the mid-90s when I worked on the first project with iWorks and Aliens, and did a motion simulation ride. And just to see what was going on then now is, I think, the conversation we're going to have today. I was also fortunate to put together, I was on the business side, so I was putting together deals, but I was also fortunate enough to work with creators and work with business people and work with designers on projects like The Void with Ghostbusters and a number of other interactive entertainment projects. So really, you know, we're here to talk today about VR and about, you know, the ideas behind where the business is heading. And I think ultimately, you know, location-based VR is shaping the way entertainment, as you've heard from Robert, is you know, it's changing the way we experience entertainment, and it's also, you know, on the flip side, you know, people are going into location-based entertainment centers trying VR for the first time. Out-of-home experiences are technically working, but not getting mass market adoption. And I think what we want to do today is really hear from the four of you about, you know, what do you have to say about the future of LDE and its universal adoption? So with that said, I'm pleased to have you guys here, and I'd like to start off by a quick intro for each one of you, and then we'll get into questions.
I'll start off. My name is Primus. I work with Robert at the virtual reality company, and actually in the business into his creative name in a lot of ways. He stole a lot of my thunder, so I probably won't be saying too much up here, but you know, I'm really happy to be up here actually and having Mark moderate, because when Mark and I were on the Sony lot together, you know, he was on the licensing team, and I learned a lot of the things that, you know, I know about licensing from our work on the Karate Kid, and I think we were looking at doing some stuff with After Earth at the time. But you know, it was you know, a lot of the same lessons that applied back then to licensing and to distribution still apply today, just as Robert said, just a different form of media. So I'm really excited to be here.
Joanna, tell us about yourself and about your company and about some of the projects you are working on.
Sure. Hi, my name is Joanna Popper, and I'm at HP. I started there in January of this year. Previously, I was at NBC Universal for about 9 years, and I was at Singularity University. So bringing together media plus innovation and tech and working in VR, it's a really, really exciting place to be right now. My focus is on location-based entertainment, and I'm also adding a focus on education as well. So HP has had the honor of getting to power many of the great experiences that we're talking about. We're powering the experience that you guys did with Dave and Buster's, which we're really happy to be working with, and we're powering many experiences that Marcie will probably talk about, as well as many of the other exciting LBEs, spaces down in Irvine that hopefully a lot of you guys have been to. Cheap at Surface that opened in downtown LA, and many others, not just in the US, but around the world. In Japan, the space has announced one yesterday that they're opening in Shibuya Crossing that will also be powered by us, and many more throughout Korea and China and many other parts of the world. So really happy to be here and talking to you guys about where location-based entertainment is going.
Great. Joanna, thank you very much on that. Marcie, please tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at Technicolor Experience Center.
Hi, my name is Marcie Jastrow, and I'm the head of the Technicolor Experience Center. The center itself was built 1.5 years ago to be the hub for emerging technology for all of our business units. So Technicolor owns visual effects and post-production companies throughout the world, as well as a games and animation division in India. What we wanted to explore was how could we take our deep knowledge of workflow and entertainment and apply that to anything immersive. So that would include VR, AR, and MR. So over the last year, we've had things like artists in residence, where they come in and they live in the tech, and we help them build their projects to try to build a sustainable and repeatable workflow and business opportunity. The center itself is not focused solely on the entertainment business. We're looking at VR and AR and MR as a tip of the spear for Technicolor to move into other market adjacencies. LBE is one of them, and one that I focus on pretty much every single day of my life, because I think that it is the most important way for people to get into a headset and enjoy immersive experiences. So that's what I do, and we're also looking at ways to distribute the form factor. What is the perfect form factor in which to drop into LBE venues? And it's not necessarily about the hyper VR or the VR arcades. It's about places where people just go and congregate.
Thank you, Marcie. Jack, tell us a little bit about you and your experiences. Hello.
Thanks. Lost the PA there for a second. Yeah, my name is McCauley, and can people hear me out here? I really can't hear my. There's a delay. You hear it? Okay. I'm hearing my own voice. I don't like it. So I am the co-founder of Oculus. I'm a video game engineer, and I worked in entertainment business for about 35 years. At various companies, Activision in Santa Monica, when I worked on Guitar Hero as the chief engineer there for the hardware, and Electronic Arts, a little bit of stuff at Sony, some other companies I worked at in Japan. So that's where I spent my career. As far as I will speak to what I'm doing currently, and then I'll launch into my thing about location-based stuff. But right now, I'm a philanthropist. I donate money to education, primarily STEM-based education. That would be science and technology, mathematics, engineering, those kinds of things. I'm involved with a research institute in Berkeley, California, called MSRI. I'm a trustee. I donate my time and effort to raise money for them. It's a postgraduate program for people who study mathematics, disadvantaged people too, women and minorities, those kinds of folks who are underrepresented in STEM. And I'm also involved with Jacobs Institute. Paul Jacobs, who's the chairman of Qualcomm, was the chairman of Qualcomm, and I built a facility in Berkeley, California, on campus to teach hands-on engineering to people who are graduating from engineering, getting the BS or MS. So we have a master's program in design engineering. The reason that I got involved with that was I was in hiring new graduates from college. I rarely hired Berkeley people, even though I'm an alumni, and that's my alma mater. The primary problem was they seemed to me to be sort of cookie cutter people who had great grades, 4.0. They're not particularly diverse, and I just thought that by hiring those people, I would be getting precisely what I was hiring, and I wanted radicals. I wanted people who were going to shake things up, and I'll launch into my thing. I know I'm talking too much here.
Yeah, you're doing great. Drop it.
No, I was just thinking how many radicals are in this space.
I'm sure there are a few, but I like those people. I don't necessarily get along with them very well. There was a well-worn path from my office to HR in my tenure at various companies. Usually, I butted heads quite a bit, and it just seemed to me that I got more productivity when Oculus came along as a 19-year-old kid who was a moderator of a VR forum. Started the company with another guy named John Carmack, who's a world-famous game programmer. John and I are colleagues. And I was invited aboard to co-found the company. I put my money into it, put skin in the game, as they say. You have to invest. If you have it, you don't have, that's okay. Palmer didn't have anything. 19 years old, they don't have much. But some of the other fellows that started the company did. So we put our own funds in there, our own money into it. And the rest is history. I am from the video game space, so I think in terms of game strategy and the outlook on artwork and things of that nature. I'm not particularly concerned with location-based entertainment. I'm a little bit out of my league here commenting on that, but I will. The VR is not a good game platform. It just doesn't work out very well. There are other applications for it, and what I'm working on right now, and I'll talk about that after I stop taking all the time here. But it is not a good game. It never was. I never liked it. I never thought it would fit. And it's not the way people play video games. They play them on a 2D screen, multiple monitors, usually on a console or preferably a PC, a souped-up PC running Windows, and they're playing online with multiple people. And that's how it's played. And it's an esports, electronic sports, which are basically watching people play video games. I can't imagine how boring that would be to watch. But I mean, that's how it's played. It was never going to be a game platform. I realized that some of the other people in the company did, but we plunged in, hoping to be able to produce content at Oculus and get the thing launched. We were pretty successful. I mean, we were selling enough headsets, and when we launched the first developers kits to be in the black, we were actually making money. The company, not through licensing, but just raw hardware sales. But we had to grow the business, so we had to find outside funds and outside money. When we did, we got $90 million, or roughly right around there, to get the company up and rolling.
So Jack, I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's a really good segue into the next part of it. Okay.
I'll shut up.
No, I want your insight, because I think it's very important. I think this segues into the business of LBE, not that you're an expert, but the transition in technologies over the years and how things have evolved and how things have changed since you started years ago and evolved and went into Oculus. And maybe Joanna, you could tell us a little bit about speakers, a little wonky. How has location-based entertainment evolved over the last couple of years with HP's involvement, given that, when I was a kid, I'd go in an arcade or an LBE and I'd play pinball, I'd play video games. There were some early VR games, there were things that you look through, sites. But Joanna, tell us a little bit about how things have changed over the last few years.
So if you look back and look at location-based entertainment, so location-based entertainment isn't new, as you just pointed out. And I think if you look back, in one presentation I have a bunch of pictures of location-based entertainment in the 70s. And in those pictures, the people are using the highest tech that's available, at a mass market productized way at the time. So you see people in movie theaters and in cinemas and in theme parks and in cruise lines and some of the similar like retail, some of the similar locations that we have location-based entertainment today. But today we're using that highest level of tech that we have available, and in many cases it's virtual reality, in some cases it's augmented reality. A couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to moderate a panel with some of the traditional venues, and they all spoke about why they're bringing VR into their venue. And it was really interesting. We had people from Westfield Mall, we had people from the casinos, that gaming aspect. We had people from Carnival Cruise Lines, and then we had the Dave & Buster's team that you guys work with. And so the overwhelming consensus was, it's not that they're looking for VR for the sake of VR, but they're looking to create experiences that increase revenue and increase customer satisfaction. And they see VR as something that is possibly enabling that. I mean, we know the trends that are, simultaneously we know some of the trends that are happening in retail, in movie theater traffic, and there's certainly plenty of data on, certain audiences prefer experiences over just doing things. And so lots of different elements are looking towards what else can they do to bring people in. And so in some cases, they'll want to use VR even as a loss leader. That for example, in a casino, the specific VR experience may or may not make money, but as long as it keeps people on site for longer, that works. In other cases, they need to get the throughput measurement right, and so that specific experience is profitable. So it's a lot. I think it's really early still in the cycle. Right now there's probably 10 to 15 places open just in LA. A year ago there were 3, and so we're still learning what will and won't work.
When we actually, probably about 6 years ago, I started working on a project called the Marvel Experience, which was this touring 3D domed experience. So you had a 3D glasses and you projected onto a dome, and there were so many limitations that it wasn't as successful as it could have been. I mean, the projection line was like 6 kind of feet above the ground on this big dome. And then when Oculus was acquired by Facebook, it kind of changed the game for us. It was kind of that aha moment of saying, oh, I won't say the expletive that came out of my mouth at the time, but you could see the future. And again, we were looking. I mean, it was, and you guys remember this, like looking for the DK1. Hey, did you get it? And then the DK2 came out, and it was really game changing. And so the evolution of location-based experience from these clunky 3D glasses to a more clunky headset, but a much more immersive experience. And that's what it's really about. It's really about the world that Robert and his team builds, putting it in a way and making it a more immersive and more engaging and more interactive so that it becomes a different form of entertainment as opposed to just watching something on the screen.
And I think that's another good point. I think, Jack, I mean, you being at Oculus, did they have visions of becoming part of the LBE world back then, or are they more or less just a home device? It's something I've never quite figured out.
Yeah, well, to answer your question, I'll cite some sales figures. With the first developer's kit, we sold 70,000. 10,000 at launch on Kickstarter, and we didn't need Kickstarter, but we put it on Kickstarter. Kickstarter is a platform which allows you to launch products, and some of them are not so great, but we used it because the team felt at the time, I'm a traditional marketing guy. I work in old stodgy companies that do things traditionally through retailers, and so I was sort of opposed to it. I looked at some of the stuff on there, and I just didn't think it would fit, but I was wrong. I've been often wrong in regards to these kind of things. So we sold 10,000 on Kickstarter, an additional 60,000 pieces, so 70,000. On DK2, we doubled that. And we were about 150,000 before they cut it off and stopped selling it because they were going to come out with a Rift, which launched much, much later. And I can get into the stumbles and mistakes that were made on that.
Let's get into the LBE part.
Sure.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, the top selling VR headset of all time was Gear VR. That was Oculus design. We basically designed and wrote the software SDK for that. And the figures are between 3 and 5 million units. So those kinds of things are more suitable for individual things like cinema VR, watching movies in stereo and so forth. As far as location-based entertainment, I can remember 15 years ago, there was a company called Global VR located in San Jose. They licensed stuff from me, and not in VR, but sort of that area. But they had a head mount that was, you walked into an arcade, and it was VGA, which is very low resolution. You wore this thing on your head, and it was tethered to a sensor, which gave your head position and so forth. And it was VR. It was a location-based VR. I have seen some of our installations with Vive and the other competitors at various Dave & Buster's and so forth like that. I don't know what the figures are on those for actual use and sales, but I've always been, and there's always been a line of people waiting to use it. So on the location-based aspect of this, it's not Oculus's primary market. We were going to try to put this in many hands as possible, which we succeeded at doing. My earn-out, which is my bonus, was based on sales. And we made our bonus because of Gear VR, not because of DK1 and DK2. Those were not big sellers. I told the team also, because I'm familiar with the way things sell, that when we sold 270,000 on DK2, we'll sell 150. On the Rift, we're going to sell 300,000, and that's what we'll do. And I was right. But I heard figures like 3.5 million. Like, where are you getting those numbers? I mean, they just pulling that out of your hat. You have to have real data, and our data was what our sales were like. So. To answer your question, we haven't sold enough of the more sophisticated headsets to really put content into. And for an investor to come along and invest in making content, there has to be a significant number of them out. But I think there are.
That's a great answer. Yeah. So moving to Marcie, thank you for that. I think, with Technicolor and your operation there being the go-to for originally color timing and all the things that Technicolor has become, under Tim Sarnoff, yourself, and others. Tell us about kind of how your technology, how you guys have had to take the traditional filmmaking and pour it into VR and location-based.
So the first thesis was, how do you build it, right? How do you build something that's interactive, that's engaging, that looks good. And we've been doing that now for the last year. And we think we have a pretty stable model on how to move from traditional 2D animation to game engine technology. So imagine 8,000 people that you have employed every single day, and knowing that at some point you're going to have to pivot into this new way of working. And that's where the tech came in. It's, the Experience Center came in, where we started bringing those people that were special unicorns, those people that were game engine developers and 2D animators and storytellers, and tried to bring them into one place where they could actually build sustainable workflows. We then started building a pipeline in India. I'm not sure if you all know this, but Technicolor has a very large existence in Bangalore. We have over 3,500 artists sitting in Bangalore working on everything from feature films to animation to games. And these are really smart cookies. But what's beautiful about these guys and girls is they thirst for more in everything that they do, and they strive for more. And they have so much heart that it made sense to build the entire pipeline in India. And so that's what we did. So we've been starting to build this pipeline. I'm going to touch on something that Rob talked about when it came to Avatar. I too worked on Avatar and was very involved with the workflow and understanding of 3D and how do you make it comfortable, how do you make a workflow actually happen where you are going day in, day. And then the other challenge was, how do you build digital screens all over the world? So watching John Landau peddle Avatar all over the world and convince every movie theater to change to a digital cinema screen, you then built an ecosystem. And that ecosystem was a standard of delivering digital content and 3D content to the world. So as I watched that, and then as I moved on to Life of Pi, and I saw the same thing, I realized in VR, once I got into VR, that was going to be the same issue. Building a sustainable, repeatable distribution platform that would ultimately be able to deliver to people in a frictionless manner. Using brick and mortar to start with, because you need to get people comfortable in a headset. I don't know how many of you have seen 55-year-old men try to get into a headset, or a 55-year-old woman who cares about her hair. These are all things that have stopped a lot of the growing of VR. And so then when you take all of those things into account, that is what I focus on. I focus on, how do you build a sustainable workflow? How do you build high-end image in a way? How do you build the story in a way where it makes sense? Now then move to, what does distribution look like? Okay, so how do I find a form factor that allows people to get into a headset, a chair, where you don't need 8 different towers and you don't need 20 different people bringing you and ushering you through an experience, giving you a 20-minute dissertation on what you're going to feel and experience. So how do you take this into a form factor? And so that is, for literally the last 4 months, all I've concentrated on. And I think that over the next year, you're going to start seeing these form factors in a very different way. Much like what Dave & Buster's did and what you guys did. Brilliant, by the way. Absolutely brilliant. Because the thing is most people sitting in this room have either experienced something, are interested in it, but the other 90% of the world has no idea what we're talking about. And so if you don't put this in the hands of people in large places with large footfall, you're never going to scale. That's the only way the smartphone scaled. And that's all I have to say.
No, that's great. And it is, the road to universal adoption, because the costs and the overhead and everything that goes into what everyone here is working on, the trajectory is only up, but obviously we're in our infancy. And I think one of the things that, I admire, obviously I've known Guy a long time and we've worked together, but when I would walk into a production office or a director or some film company and I talk about technology, they'd be more interested in the CGI aspects of their movie, or even way before, they just wanted to make a movie and they didn't necessarily care about technology.
And just one more point I want to make. So I am a salesperson at heart. That is what I do. I sell all day long, and you have to understand, for me, for 4 years, I've had nothing to sell. And so it's like, this is insane. So I had to go out and figure that out. Because imagine this conversation. You walk into a studio exec, and you say to the studio exec, hey, I think there's a VR experience that can go along with your awesome movie. Oh, well, what's the distribution like? How much money can I make? Can I monetize it? How many eyeballs am I going to have? What do you mean it's going to cost $1.5 million to do it? What's my payback? Those are the conversations I was having every day, and I figured that if I didn't figure it out, then it was never going to go anywhere. So for me, it just came out of the need to sell something.
That's great, and I think that's kind of where I was getting at, because when working with someone like Guy, when he was at Overbrook, we would put brand strategies together for IPs. We would try to figure out what is the next best technology. And of course, we had our sights on VR and AR and gaming. Guy, how do you and the team at the virtual reality company really look at IPs? And what is kind of the evaluation process? Obviously, Jurassic Park is a behemoth of an IP. We all know it. But what's kind of the criteria for you guys, and how do you see IP growing in the virtual reality LBE space?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, it starts with the world, right? So at Overbrook, we used to have this saying, it's, the mission of Overbrook Entertainment was to connect people with connect people all over the world with extraordinary entertainment art. And so it was, that story and the world building, and then the distribution that Marcie's talking about, that really led us to kind of, doing Karate Kid, and again, even, a movie like Pursuit of Happiness, which, somebody thought would be a $30 million movie. And then Will Smith flipped the kind of equation and said, no, you're misunderstanding. It's not about a homeless black guy. It's about a father's love for his son, right? So when we think about IP, we think about that universally relatable. And when you were talking to Robert earlier, does Jurassic translate? Is it a story that translates? And then, when you think about it, it's a story of survival. It's the survival of the dinosaurs and the survival of the people on the island. And that is a universal, emotion from way back, since the beginning of man. And so we want to think about that. We try not to do things that are cultural specific or that require too much dialogue. It really is about the characters and the actors and the immersion within the world. And then you have to go to how many people are familiar with this IP. So things like Jurassic, again, you looked at it, and when we looked at it, $4 billion IP. It's done $4 billion at the box office. It's a real no-brainer. And you look at some of the other IP that we're looking at now, and you just kind of start with on Box Office Mojo or IMDb, and you can see what the box office figures are for an IP, and then you just start having those conversations. Now the thing that we have is that we did The Martian for Fox, so we were able to work with Ridley Scott and do that, and work with MPC, and kind of put together a really great product and put that out to the market that won a Cannes Lion Award, gave us credibility. We spent a lot of time at the Experience Center, with Marcie, and saw the technology that was coming out. And then you started putting together pitches that, we would go out to the studios and say, here's what we can do, here's how much we want to license it for. So it wasn't, we're going to make you spend money, we're going to spend the money. We're going to use some of that investment money, those dollars that Robert talked about, and we're going to put skin in the game, like Jack was talking about. So this is the package. And by the way, there's this distributor called Dave & Buster's that has 120 locations, and they want to do this. We're going to have to simplify the story. We're going to have a really, a very simple game mechanic, but that's what they're looking for. And it's not the immersive world, of hyper reality that a lot of people aspire to. But again, what we have is foot traffic, and we have, from Dave & Buster's, we have a very basic story that people can cycle through, and we have a very quick on and off, so it's high throughput, and that's a business.
Boy, I could have used...
Hallelujah.
I was going to say, I could have used this team while I was at Sony to help convince some people, but they did have the PSVR, and it's doing quite well. So, Joanna, I think that, what I'm learning about this conversation is there's a group of people within an ecosystem that have to come together in order to create Jurassic Park or another IP. How does HP come together with folks like Guy and Marcie?
Sure.
Give us a little bit about that. And is IP important to the mix?
Sure. So HP has been around. I don't know if you guys know that our first customer was actually Walt Disney. So the person Walt Disney, not the conglomerate.
garage next door to his. Yeah.
So we've been around for a long time. Media and entertainment has been at the forefront of the company for a long time. HP is focused on inventing and reinventing the future and technology. And so we're also the largest maker and seller of computers in the world. So for us, we look at it and say VR and immersive computing is the future of computing. So it's really important for us to be investing in this and learning about it. There are 5 industries that we focus on. LBE is one of them. Education is one of them. Architecture, engineering, and construction. Training, both enterprise, military, as well as first responder is another. And then the last is healthcare. So those are the industries where we see that there's already a lot of action happening, a lot of interest, a lot of need. And it makes sense because either it's going to lead to more revenue, decrease costs, a better customer experience, or increase productivity for that business. And so that's where we focus. And the LBE side, we have these great backpacks. Some of you guys have seen if you've been to some of the experiences. We also, of course, have towers, and we have laptops, and we make some of the Windows reality headsets, and we resell the Vives. So for our point of view, my personal point of view is that it's a very collaborative business right now. It's not about any company versus any other. It's not about being competitive. It's about bringing the best teams together to bring the best experiences to that consumer base, most of whom, as Marcie said, haven't yet experienced VR. So I think on the project that we were talking about, there's 7 different teams that worked on that project in one way or another, right? Even a lot of the projects we worked on, there's a lot of different people coming to play. A lot of the projects that we work on, they're using Oculus headsets. So, there's very few companies and very few parts that we haven't touched in some way, or companies that we don't work with. We partner with people across the board. And so we're not, the way I look at the Dave & Buster's experience, I think it has 7 things that made it a winning strategy. It's gamified, it's multiplayer, it's in a place where people are already going to spend money with their family and friends to have fun. They were able to put a national advertising campaign against it. It's IP that's not just known from way back. It also has having a new movie come out, and even if you've never seen any movies, everyone can get behind dinosaurs. So it had a lot of things bringing it together, and I think that's a great example, an example that many of the other projects can continue to learn from. But I also think it's too early to say that's the way. I know that you were talking about VR cinema. There's a lot of really interesting VR cinema plays already in China, already in Japan, already in Korea. We haven't seen it as much yet in the US, but I think we have an exciting future with VR cinema in the US and in many other places around the world. So I wouldn't say from the HP point of view, we are driving the IP conversation or the content conversation. I come out of media and television, but I think that we also want to take the point of view that let each player do what they're best at. And so, our team for the most part knows technology, and we want to make sure that we're partnering with people who are great at the creation and great at choosing the IP.
That's great. So one of the things I think about is when you read articles and you hear the media say that virtual reality has had its time, and all of us sit here and say no way. And I've read articles about how do people make money and all those types of things. But I think given that the perception in the mass market is not quite there yet, for whatever reason, we're not selling Oculus headsets at Walmart yet. But I do think
They sold them at Best Buy, so I don't know what the difference is. Maybe they
but it was also.
I mean, they did.
Yeah, I think
probably do, right?
Yeah,
Best Buy and Samsung gave away headsets, VR headsets with the phone.
Yeah.
So they are being sold.
So they are being sold.
Yeah.
But I think independent of that, when you talk about a mass market adoption, and you talk about Des Moines, Iowa, wearing, no offense against Des Moines, Iowa, but wearing headsets. LA, New York is a different place. And I think one of the things I really want to find out from you is when, if you read about the slowdown in VR, how does a company profit back up and fight that current and really bring this to fruition over time? And I think over time, yes, 100% it's going to get there. But right now, it's still in its infancy. And it has been for 15 years. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Productized in a mass market way in the last 2 years, so 2 to 3 years. So of course, it's in its infancy at the top of it.
Right, but is it, I mean, more generally, is there...
And I also think that there were so many disparate parts and moments that, to Guy's point, we were waiting for. So we were waiting for the Oculus headset to come out, then we were waiting for this next big moment, and then, oh my gosh, the void is opening. You know, every moment was one of those things where we're like, okay, let's hold our breath and see what's going to happen now. And we didn't have data. So now we have 3-4 years of data where we actually, may not be a ton of data, but it's enough to start placing some bets and seeing what might work and willing to take those chances. I don't believe that anybody 2 years ago really, maybe they were going to dabble in it, but now with the success of a couple of different things, even Beat Saber is a really good example of an out-of-home, an in-home experience, but even an out-of-home experience. You can't look at the IMAX and say, oh, that failed. It failed because you're asking people to go do something they've never done. And then you're not marketing it behind it. I think if there was a really cohesive marketing push behind what it is that we're trying to do, then there might be some sustainability and rising the tide.
Just so everybody knows, that announcement was from, I think, the global emergency, so don't worry.
I had my phone to turn it off
National.
at 2:28, so I wouldn't get it.
So Marcie, that's really, that nails it. That's kind of where I was getting at. It's like, we're in its infancy. You guys are all pouring your hearts and souls and financials into this, and I think ultimately, this 80% of you, perhaps, or 70 when Robert polled, haven't tried VR. I think you have to try it, and you have to try it in an environment that will make you come back and do it over again.
Well,
that's my point.
I mean, it's absolutely the point, and it's interesting because right now where we are is, and Dave & Buster's was our launch partner, and God bless them because they put a bunch of resources behind this project that's getting VR out to hundreds of thousands of, as Charlie said, I'm not sure if he's here yet, but upwards of millions of people will have gone through that experience over the course of the years. Now that being said, we're talking to dozens of other companies around the world that all want to distribute Jurassic World, and what they want to know is what is coming behind Jurassic. So if we invest in this motion platform and these headsets and these HP computers and this software, what is next? Because again, to Marcie's point, when Warner and Fox and other movie companies had their movie theaters, they knew exactly what their slate was. And there's what they're asking is what's the slate? And we're working on a slate. We have our own slate, but we need more content, and that is what is going to tip the balance, and that's what's going to success to get success. And so, Dave & Buster's has been phenomenally successful from our standpoint. Dave & Buster's, everyone involved, everyone's happy, but we just need more content at this point in time.
And now you could try some new things, like creating your own content, taking some risks, obviously collaborating with other studios and companies, and that's where I think all of us can tie in together. Let's shift over to
one point.
Yeah.
So I would also like to add that, we're talking about startups, we're talking about companies building content. Everyone who works in Hollywood knows that most of the content doesn't work, right? Most startups don't work. So to take a look at any one company that doesn't make it, or any one content piece that doesn't make it, or even you just brought up IMAX. IMAX closed 2 of their locations. They still have 5 locations open. So that's saying that they failed is I don't think that's a fair statement, given that there's been 5 open and they're still working and continuing to improve. So expecting that everything is going to come out of the gate and be perfect, and every content was going to work, and every technology was going to work, is giving VR a much higher bar than we give the rest of media, and a much higher bar than we give any other tech company and any other startup. And so that's a really unfair bar to give this.
That's well said, and that's why I asked the question, because I really want people to understand your side of it. And you did something very nice. You put a report on LinkedIn that was very valuable, and I thank you for that, that I believe people should read, because it talked about location-based sales. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
So Springboard VR, who's one of the bigger content management tools that a lot of the smaller mom-and-pop arcades, or not even mom-and-pop, but just a lot of the independent arcades are using to get their content, and show some content on there. Did a white paper last week. You can find it on their website, Springboard VR, and where they gave 9 tips for arcade owners. And they did actually plug our computers and give you a way to find them at a really good rate. So It's like a self-plug, but it's a good report despite that.
Set you up for it. Take it. Take it.
Yeah, honestly, it's a self-plug. It's a good report.
No, but I think that's good. I think the report says to me, and being around the industry like you guys, that there is definitely an upside. And I want people to walk out here saying that if you're in the business, you should be in the business. Let's shift to international markets. And I think, we are here for cross-border dealings, and I work within some projects in China. And why don't we go around the room and talk a little bit about, Guy, what your company is looking at in China and some of the things that you're aspiring to do there.
Yeah, so the first thing is we'll be distributing Jurassic to a lot of venues in China right now, and we count seats. So, hundreds of seats, and again, I won't give the specific number, but through our investor, who Rob mentioned, Hongjian Shambhala Culture Company. So they invested in us, they actually worked with us as a production partner, and they also handled Chinese distribution for us. And then we're working with a number of other companies in Asia, in Japan and Korea on getting Jurassic out to the masses. But we also have experience because we worked with Hongjian Shambhala to distribute Raising a Ruckus, which was our first kind of piece of original content that we won a Lumiere Award for last year for Best Location-Based VR Experience. And we just translated into Mandarin and distributed in China. So we have a lot of data and we understand what works. And we also distributed in IMAX, so it was the first piece of original content in IMAX, that hadn't debuted on, the Oculus, store or the Vive store. And, so we got a lot of data from that and worked with a company called D-Box, which did a motion control chair, which was they're still going to do theaters. So we had a lot of partnership experience, a lot of data, and then we distributed that, throughout the rest of the world, including Europe as well. So, really what we're doing, and again, I think that experimentation is probably the operative phrase here. IMAX VR is not a consumer brand, but they're experimenting, and God bless them for leading. And so we're learning a lot from them, and we'll continue to do that.
In the second part, and I want you all to answer this as well, just like you did, Guy, is that what has to happen for localization and some of the things. I think that would be additional help for the people here to understand what has to happen in terms of getting the content to be adapted.
I'm just going to make a really quick comment, and again, this is something that we learned at Sony together, which is you can't start localization after the content is in the can. I mean, because Rob alluded to it, the stories have to be, interesting and relatable across the globe. You have to start there, and so it doesn't make sense to start with the, kind of localization, even though, there's a lot that goes into it. And I'm sure Marcie, has a lot of experience in that as well.
I know you were in China. I saw some LinkedIn posts
about that. In Korea. Well, HP is a global company. We're operating over 100 countries. We have local teams in China, local teams in Korea, local teams in Japan, local teams in Taiwan. We build a lot of our products in the region as well, and many other countries in the region. So in terms of our product localization, we work with Windows to make sure that the version that is on the computers would be localized to language, if that's what the companies that are working with us want. Obviously, would have the right plugs and all sorts of some of the basics that you would need for the technology. But I think what's great is that being in such a global company is that we have the ability to work with our partners on that global basis, but also have local expertise and knowledge and insight on the ground, to work with your partners that are over in other countries. And for me, though, it's been really exciting and interesting to have the ability to work with and see so many things around the world and see how LD compares in different countries. And then later this month, I'll be going to Saudi Arabia, Dubai, and then Amsterdam. So I'll get to see a lot more. Stay tuned for my updates.
Yeah, we're following it. It's got a good following. But I'm curious with HP, just as a follow-up, like in terms of hiring and bringing on new people to build this area. I mean, I assume that's a major area for HP in terms of over the next several years to hire and to build and talk a little bit about
the way that we look at it, and so the person who leads the whole area leads both gaming as well as VR now, and so he took the gaming industry, the gaming sector that we had, and turned it into a multi-billion-dollar with the Omen brand, and so we sponsor Overwatch, the Overwatch League, and we have a lot of really cool things happening in the gaming world. And so he did such a great job with that they asked him to head up VR. And so VR is small, still, compared to everything else we do, and certainly even compared to gaming. But the way we treat it, is that HP is like our VC, and that we're our own little startup. That's the way we try to interact with the company and have an independent team that has engineers and R&D and go to market and segment expertise.
Oh, you want to use my tripod for something else?
Well, this one should have been your tripod.
Nimble and
Sorry.
flexible and
Sorry.
able to try to
This
work
one should have been
on
your
the same
tripod.
pace
Oh.
and with
Because-
the
Well, I brought my
startups
tripod.
the way
I
they
know,
to
I'm
work,
saying
but
that
still
this
have the
tripod should have been
resources
your
and the
tripod here,
backing
and then
and
that
the
camera
funding
monopod.
and
Because we need
brand
another
of
tripod.
the company
We can't
behind
do
us.
that with that.
Right, and China
tripod
being
there.
probably one of the number one
Well, when do you want to do that?
countries, I would imagine,
As soon as we
in
can.
terms of trying to
Like,
benefit
I
because
need it
of
now.
How's it going on?
the
Such
huge,
a big
such a big market, and
Set right
huge,
now.
Okay.
I mean,
mandates
there's like just
playing
like
VR.
downtime.
Marcie, tell us a little bit about your current
Okay.
experience in China and where you guys think you're heading.
So we haven't really done anything in China as of yet. We do have an accelerator program with 5 Korean companies that actually work at the tech and each have their own product that they're trying to build on and see if they can get to the actual American market. So it's a transfer of information for each team. I really wanted to try to crack the nut here in the United States. While I understand there's such a huge market in China and Asia, I needed to really understand what was going to happen here and how we do it here. And although Technicolor is global, meaning London, France, Montreal, India, I wanted to first build a sustainable pipeline. Making these experiences are not cheap. And so for me, I felt like if I couldn't build the pipeline that was a sustainable pipeline where you could get some repeatability out of it, it didn't make any sense. And so now through partners that I have in China, the content that we built, I can now distribute. So again, maybe I'm a little behind in that sense, but I really felt like I needed to understand the entire playing field of what was working here. And then the localization side is perhaps, in my opinion, what you can get the data from. You can get all kinds of data of what's working, but, again, the theme of, hitting 8 to 80, so everybody ages 8 to 80 is really what you need for scalability. And so that's kind of what I concentrated on.
Jack, I guess it's a loaded question for you because of Facebook in China, or lack thereof. Has there been any conversation, maybe talk a little bit about...
You're smuggling, I see. I saw Oculus in China. I saw smuggling. I saw some Oculus in China.
So I guess for you, and being from that world with Oculus, was there what were some of the challenges for China for the Oculus side? We know it's the Facebook side, but was there any plans for Oculus to go into the China market?
I'm not at liberty to discuss those things right now, but I've seen more HTC products in China than I have Oculus. And I'm still stuck on the 3 questions ago about the market for VR, if I just may take it.
Of course, this is for you.
I grew up, this is pretty close to Silicon Valley, and all of my life I've spent in basically one area. But I remember that in Byte magazine, there used to be a magazine, a computer magazine for hobbyists, and I was very curious about computers. I got Byte magazine, I'd look in the back at the ads, and I saw Apple Computers ad back in the back, and they were selling computers, very small company. I contacted them, I sent them a letter, because there was no internet. The only way you could communicate with someone is you have to write a letter, so I wrote a letter, sent it to them, so I need a job, and I got a response back. And I went to the interview with Steve Jobs, and it was the worst interview I ever had. They didn't hire me. He took one look at me and says, "We can't use you." But I watched that, and I also remember there was a company called Eagle Computing, which was a competitor to Apple, as was about 5 other computer companies. This is back in the day, and they had 2 choices of operating systems, 3 really. You could run CP/M, you could run DOS, or you could run Apple's OS. And there were no applications. There was a spreadsheet and a thing called WordPro. And the spreadsheet was called SuperCalc. I used to use it, and then it was overwhelmed by Excel, but there was no applications for it. And now look in this room, everyone here has a computer in their hand, and it took 40 years to get there, though. So if you're wondering about the market for VR, I'd say we're in our infancy right now. And cell phones came out, they were big bulky things in the 1980s. No one had them. Why would you need that? Why do I need to call that person? Right now I can just go to a payphone. I mean, there's a lot of questions about that. Why do I need a computer? My dad said, that's a stupid idea. We just get a typewriter. You know, why do you need a printer and a computer? You know, I had a TRS-80, which is a Radio Shack had a computer before Apple. There was other, but my story is it may not be Facebook that produces the virtual reality headset. It may be another company. We don't know who that is right now, but it's not going to go away. And it may not be, I mean, Facebook wants you to have Facebook in your face constantly. So they want you to be able to have access to Facebook and steal your eyeballs 24/7, well, not when you're sleeping, but 16 out of 24 hours of the day, they want that thing in front of you. So they want it to work. And it may be a see-through experience, it may not be virtual reality, it may be something else. And it may not be them who comes up with it. I know there are serious programs at various companies, I can't name them, that try to recruit me to work for them, who really do have an enthusiasm for augmented reality and virtual reality. We're seeing the beginning days of this. It's only been 4 years. This is like 1975.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very good point. And I don't want to cut you off because there's a lot to say, and it's great. And we have 4 minutes. That's a really good segue into finalizing. If you want to finish your thought, I'll ask one more question.
Okay, and that my thought is just hang in there. It turns out it's not for gaming. I never thought it was. I thought it was a bad platform for that. It's uncomfortable. You have to 8 hours playing video games if it doesn't work. Other stuff's going to come up, and there are enough of those out there right now that somebody's going to come up with something. So that's it.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think that's where, I want to ask the panel one last question and ask, how can we advance VR in the LD industry in terms of, just as you say, we are in the first 5 years, so to speak, of this new generation. What are some of the things, perhaps, on your pipeline you'd like to see, Guy, happen over the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, I think, again, Dave & Buster's has a great platform to have foot traffic. I think building for that platform or something very similar so that there's a little bit more standardization. So one of the things that when I was at the Experience Center saw I won't name the company, but Marcie, kind of hosts a lot of companies there, and they had a really great, kind of platform for hyper-real VR. And I think, again, once that is established, building for that platform, again, whether it's the Void or Nomadic or whatever the platform is, understanding what that is and building specifically for that. So you're not, again, we've been reinventing the wheel for the past 15 years, and it's time to stop. It's time to put your whip behind one arrow and go forward, and then the market can expand once there's more of a familiarity and a consumer base for virtual reality.
Joanna?
What I would say, there's lots of great companies building great content, doing great tech experiences, figuring out the operations and the retail. So I would say, go support them. Go try the experiences, bring your family, bring your friends, talk about it, spread the love. You're the lucky, lots of numbers thrown around here, but I heard 5% or whatever that right number is that's actually gotten to experience this. Bring people along with you so they get to have those same experiences and help us build the buzz of the industry.
And I would just say, VR in as many places where there's a lot of people. Because at that point, you just need a certain percentage of people to walk in to start monetizing. And the minute you can start monetizing, the better the content, the greater the experience. So push your people in, your friends and your family into the headsets and give them their aha moment, because that's all it really takes is that one experience.
So I just have a minute left here, so I'm just going to race through my thing what I'm doing. So I work at Jacobs Institute, and we're using I'm running their VR for Design program. That's basically me. I funded it. So what we're going to do is we're going to create things using CAD and view them in full size. For instance, a vehicle, a car, a Tesla Model S, whatever. You have a CAD model for that. You can import it into in-game, so to speak, because we do use a game engine, Unity or Unreal, and then be able to view it full size. So the students can create their own stuff. So for design, and Bell just did a full-size helicopter, the ID for it, using VR. So for that kind of stuff, it's brilliant, because you really don't get a feel for how something looks until you actually see it full-size in front of you. You can examine it. And the software is stunning. Unity's, their photoreal stuff in real time, it's photoreal. It's just amazing. I wonder how far it's come. That's mostly because of GPUs, but anyway, that's it.
Well done.
And
well,
artistry.
I'm honored to be part of this with the four of you. I've learned a lot, and I hope everybody here has as well. And you know, the LBE VR area is here to stay, and it's going to grow. And I just tell everybody to go try out the Jurassic Park. I did it. It's awesome. My kids loved it. And anything else, you know, you have questions, I'm sure they'll be around to answer those after. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
A round of applause for our panel, everybody.